never-ending language that the cat has in order to talk with you. So even the cat itself is changed by this. When you have big discussions about this part, you have to keep in mind that you can translate sentences like, what time is it? And it works. Basically, in every culture, you can have a phrase book in which you can go into a country, a very weird country with an incredible script and simply, pretty much like our ancestor went into Chinese coffee shops. They say the number, and basically it will be understood. But if you try to understand a book of poetry from English, German, which are very close, or from Japanese to Chinese, in the end what you get is a completely different work, which may be fantastic, but it's just not the work. I love Dostoevsky, and it's an Italian translation. I hate it in Russian. Honestly, I don't understand how he can be considered a great writer because he makes phrases this big. Now the Italian translator inserted a point each every 30 words and it became readable. Too bad that that's the style of the writer. So what got lost in the middle is Mr. Dostoevsky. Right? And this is happening all of the time because it stands here. So when we do a dictionary and we start talking about dictionary and now we go from any language to any language, bear in mind that we go to a certain extent. What we do is we say that this is, and we mutuate an expression from physics here, this is the space of phases. When you do physics, if you do physics, you're going to be told that there is a thing called the space of phases of water, for example. Water can be ice, it can be snow, it can be liquid, it can be vapor, it can be many things, but it's still water, okay? So my cat can be in English phase, can be in Russian phase, can be in the Vietnamese phase, it's still a cat. But, can you do the same things that you do with vapor once you have ice? No. A glacier doesn't fly. A cloud does. They're both water. And the very same thing happens when you have a translation. This thing is called the semantical break. And this is something that we have to keep in mind because we will be connected with the fact that to a certain extent it's impossible to make a direct translation from each language to each language. So we have intermediate steps, all right? It's very unlikely that if I want to make a translation from, say, Wolof in Central Africa to Vietnamese, I will have a native who is able to speak both. It's extremely likely. The likely thing is that there will be an English speaker in the middle who will be speaking both Wolof and English, both English and Vietnamese. They will make a translation to English, they will meet there, and they will have a second-degree translation. But what happens is that, as I told you, just the first translation can completely lose Mr. Dostoevsky in the process and insert something else. You can easily imagine how much is inserted and taken off when you reach step number 15. So, this is the second important thing that we have to keep in mind. Now, to the structure. When we call this thing a profile, we say the thing emerged into a phase. So we have this cat emerging in English as cat, or as something else. It emerges. It's actually a term that I've stolen from Gen 2 because it looked like the same. They emerge programs into a different operative system, and I thought that in the end we do exactly the same thing. We emerge a concept into a language. It may be there and it may not be there. My native language doesn't contain the verb to love. I cannot emerge that. I can make a definition, but I cannot say that I love somebody in my native language because it's simply not there. I can say a lot of different things about relation, but I cannot say that, and everybody else is saying it. So it's already a problem when I make a translation. And it's a problem for you when you make it from mine, when we have concepts about order and proper things to do that you don't have in most other languages, apart from Japanese. So what we have is this empty thing that doesn't contain anything. a number. Number 1. Now at number 1, what happens? We put a cat. Okay? Somebody else says, oh, I would say that as I would say that like this in my other language. And people can continue to append things to it. And we say that they go together. Because people can say that they are equivalent to a certain extent. The problem is that since you can say there is nothing here, it's just a meeting place, it's a square where people go and stay there. The square where words go starts to contain things that are supposed to be the same. At a certain point it happens that somebody is translating this into another language which is not this. This is a translation of this. The first one saw the cat and said, okay, in Russian it's called. The third one maybe is from Central Asia, and for him a tiger is also a cat. So he puts the equivalent of tiger here, and he is perfectly legitimate in his operation, because in his language this is possible. Only there is no tiger in the concept of cat. At this point, you're starting to have what you call a big semantic drift, and you have to split. You have to take a part of this and move it here, into the problem of tigers. So you start to have many different meeting points, where labels, because that's what they are, or pieces of content or expression, phrases, full documents, really are the same thing. This takes much less work than writing 6,000 for 6,000. That's a factorial number. You can imagine how many dictionaries could be produced if we had to do them by one. It's impossible. We will never do it. Like this, maybe we can have partial collection that end up in being a repository that can help to make that word collection freedom is needed. The second thing is that, like this, we're going to have a lot of such problems, because a lot of people is going to translate what is not the first name, but it's the third, the fourth, the fifth. So there is already some drift on it, and it can add up. And we need the possibility of splitting things and putting them together. In the end, what we have is a simple structure like this. You have a profile. This profile, as we said, is an empty concept, which has a collection of expression and definitions, which is a traditional dictionary. Okay? I can have part of them, both of them, only the definition, only the expression, whatever. The idea is that it's not fixed in format. It's simply like something that can suck up and order everything it finds. And it doesn't need to be complete in some way or some other. It's simply a way in which I can assign something somewhere and say, people are using this like this. And I can be prepared and must be prepared to an endless amount of variety. Because there are no two cultures that are close enough to be totally merged. If they were, they would be merged and they would be the same culture. But they are different. So there is always some difference that we have to address. When we have this stuff, what we do is put it into a big container and build a network. When we build a network, we have a machine that is capable of working with this stuff, and is capable of doing this all. That is without an internet.